During a family dinner, my sister-in-law offered to take my 5-year-old son to the store for a treat. She came back alone. When I asked where he was, she smirked. "Oh, I must have forgotten him at the store." My mother said, "Don't worry, he'll turn up." Then came the laugh. Maybe now he won't steal Colin's spotlight. One phone call later, they lost everything. Actions have consequences. I'm Alan. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I've been raising my son Leo on my own since his mother walked out 4 years ago. She left a note, a half-packed suitcase, and nothing else. It was a mess, but Leo was only 2 then, and I didn't have time to fall apart. I just became dad. Full-time, all in, no excuses. Leo's a firecracker, smart, loud, messy, kind. He talks with his hands and draws dragons on everything. I think he's amazing. But not everyone in my family agrees. Take my younger brother Brent, for instance. He married Olivia about 7 years ago. She's the kind of woman who always looks like she just walked out of a Pinterest ad. Hair perfect, voice smooth, passive aggression layered in sugar. They have a boy named Colin, just 6 months younger than Leo. So of course, everyone compares them. And I mean everyone. Especially our mother, Deirdre. Every family gathering turns into an unspoken competition between Leo and Colin. And Leo never wins. At Thanksgiving, Colin says, "Please pass the peas," and it's like he delivered the Gettysburg Address. Leo makes a joke, and Deirdre's eyes narrow like he just barked during church. "Oh, Colin is just so polite," she'll say, ignoring the fact that Leo helped clean the table without being asked. It's not that Leo is rude, he's just spirited. He gets excited and blurts things out. He asks big questions, tells long stories. Meanwhile, Colin sits with folded hands and repeats whatever Olivia whispers to him beforehand. It's all rehearsed, and yet it earns applause. A couple months ago, at my dad's memorial service, Leo stood up and said he missed Grandpa's silly songs. He was trying so hard not to cry, his voice shaking, his little fist clenched. And Deirdre's only response? Well, Colin made him a beautiful card. A card. Leo poured his heart out, and my mother praised some crayon sketch like it was a Picasso. Still, I try not to make a big deal out of it. I really do. I bite my tongue, keep my face neutral. It's just how she is, Brent always says. Don't take it personally. But how can I not? When it's not just me she's overlooking anymore, it's my son. Last Christmas, Leo made ornaments out of clay, little snowmen with our initials. He gave one to Deirdre, all proud. She glanced at it, said, "Oh, how creative," then dropped it in her purse. Meanwhile, Colin gave her a candy cane with a ribbon taped to it, and she teared up. "He's always so thoughtful," she whispered. Leo looked at me with these wide, confused eyes. Like he was trying to understand what he'd done wrong. I didn't have an answer. I just hugged him tight and told him his snowman was my favorite ornament of all. I've talked to Deirdre about it, once or twice. Asked her to maybe try giving Leo more credit. She waved it off. "Alan, he's just very boisterous. He'll settle down with time. You're too sensitive. Don't project that onto him." I wanted to scream, but instead I just nodded, like I always do. And Olivia, well, she doesn't help. She has this way of complimenting Leo that's really just disguised criticism. "He's so imaginative," she said at Easter, after Leo told a story about flying whales. It must be exhausting keeping up with him. That's when I knew this wasn't in my head. They weren't just overlooking Leo. They were judging him. Silently disapproving, slowly eroding his confidence with every forced smile and backhanded comment. But I keep showing up. For Leo's sake. Because no matter how hard it gets, I want him to know he's not alone. I want him to know we have family, even if that family sometimes forgets how to love loud kids with big hearts. The last time we left a family barbecue, Leo said, "Why doesn't Grandma ever hang up my drawings like she does Colin's?" I told him maybe she just forgot. But he didn't buy it. He looked out the window and said, "I think she just likes quiet boys better." I didn't have an answer to that, either. But something in me shifted. I don't know exactly when. Maybe it was that moment, maybe earlier. But whatever it was, I started to see it all clearly. The favoritism, the hypocrisy, the quiet erosion of my son's spirit. I told myself I was keeping the peace. But really, I was just trying not to rock a boat that had been off balance for years. That peace is crumbling. I feel it, like something simmering under the surface. I don't know what's coming next, but I can tell something's going to break. Colin's 6th birthday party was held at Olivia and Brent's house, just like every other year. Streamers everywhere. Coordinated balloons, branded napkins, even a clown that looked like it had been imported from one of those high-end kids agencies in Chicago. Olivia went all out, like she always did. Everything had to be picture perfect. Leo and I arrived right on time, gift bag in hand. Leo holding the card he had painted himself. He worked on it for 2 days, a bright red dragon with blue scales, breathing fire that spelled out, "Happy birthday, Colin." He was so proud of it. He showed it to me 10 times in the car, practicing what he was going to say. "I'm going to tell Colin that the dragon is guarding his cake, he whispered, grinning. He'll love it. I nodded, smiling even though my stomach was already tight. These parties always made me nervous. One wrong look from Deirdre, one smirk from Olivia, and the whole afternoon could spiral. But Leo didn't know any of that. He just wanted to make his cousin smile. The moment we walked in, Olivia greeted us at the door with that same frozen smile. Oh, hi, Alan, she said. Leo. Leo held out his card. I made this for Colin. She took it delicately, like it was something she didn't want fingerprints on. Oh, that's colorful, she said. Then she turned and dropped it on a side table next to a pile of wrapped gifts, mostly store-bought cards and crisp envelopes. Leo looked up at me, blinking. She didn't even read it, he whispered. She's probably just busy, I said under my breath, nudging him forward. Let's go say hi to Colin. Colin was in the living room surrounded by kids, opening presents. Deirdre stood nearby, clapping softly as he tore into wrapping paper. Colin held up a Lego box, a basic starter set. Everyone owed. Deirdre leaned down, kissed the top of his head. Such a smart boy, she cooed. Always so polite. Leo reached into my pocket and pulled out the dragon card again. Can I give it to him now? I nodded. Go ahead, buddy. He ran over, knelt beside Colin, and said, This dragon is guarding your birthday. He breathes cake instead of fire. Colin looked at the card, then at his mom. Olivia raised one eyebrow. Leo, she said sweetly, you sure do like making everything about you, don't you? Leo's shoulders dipped just slightly. No, I just wanted to. I mean, you're always performing, right? She added. So theatrical. Deirdre snorted softly. Well, some kids crave attention more than others, she muttered, not even bothering to whisper. Leo looked down at the card. His face flushed. I crouched beside him. It's a great card, Leo. I love the dragon. He nodded, lips pressed together. He wouldn't cry, not in front of everyone. Then Colin stood and held up a small toy microphone. I know my ABCs, he shouted. The adults clapped. Olivia laughed and clapped like she was at a concert. Oh, he's just so clever, she beamed. Deirdre wiped at her eye. He's going to be a star, just like his daddy. I looked down at Leo, who was still holding his card. No one had even given it a second glance. Leo tugged at my sleeve and whispered, Can we go? I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, Deirdre's voice snapped behind me. Alan, you really need to teach Leo not to be so sensitive. It's not always about him. I turned around. He just gave his cousin a card. Well, she sniffed, maybe you shouldn't expect a parade for it. I took a breath, tried to bite my tongue like I always did. But Leo was already walking toward the coat rack. I'll wait in the car, he said, voice barely audible. I followed him out, grabbing our coats along the way. No one stopped us. Not even Brent. In the car, Leo stared straight ahead, tears welling but not falling. Do they think I'm bad? He asked. No, I said quickly. Of course not. They don't clap for me. Not like they do for Colin. I gripped the steering wheel, jaw clenched. I wanted to say something comforting. I wanted to make it better. But all I could manage was, they're wrong. And for the first time, I think he didn't believe me. It was a Sunday. Every other week, we did dinner at Deirdre's place, like some unspoken rule that no one dared challenge. Leo never liked going. Said the house smelled like mothballs and broccoli. I didn't blame him, but I still made him come, because I believed, maybe foolishly, that showing up meant something. That if we kept showing up, one day they'd see him for who he was. That evening, things felt different. Not loud or dramatic, just off. Olivia was there, already in the kitchen when we arrived, setting the table with way more effort than usual. She looked up, flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Leo, is that a new jacket? She asked, bending slightly to examine the sleeves. You look so grown up today. Leo beamed, like the sun had cracked through a week of gray. Thanks. Dad got it for me. It's reversible too, look. He started turning the sleeve inside out to show her, but Olivia waved it off. No need, sweetheart. You already look sharp. She never called him sweetheart. We all sat down around the table. Deirdre had made some dry chicken dish she insisted was Tuscan style. Brent talked about some promotion he might get. Deirdre clinked her wine glass for attention every time Colin spoke, and Leo tried hard to be part of it all, laughing when he was supposed to, asking polite questions. I watched him, proud and uneasy at the same time. Halfway through the meal, Olivia leaned toward Leo. Hey, I was thinking, there's that little hobby store around the corner, right? The one with the model kits and puzzles? Maybe we could swing by after dinner. Just the two of us. Leo looked stunned. Really? Sure, she said sweetly. You've been such a good boy tonight. I thought maybe you deserved a surprise. Deirdre chimed in, barely glancing up from her plate. That's a great idea. He's been very well behaved. Let Olivia treat him. I looked at Leo, who was already halfway out of his seat, and then back at Olivia. Something didn't feel right. It was too much, too sudden. Olivia never went out of her way for Leo. Ever. I cleared my throat. I can take him if he wants to go. Olivia laughed lightly. Alan, it's fine. I want to. We'll be quick. Besides, you never get to relax during these dinners. Deirdre nodded like it was decided. Let her take him. It'll give you and Brent a chance to talk. Leo tugged my sleeve. Please, Dad. She said it's a surprise. I love surprises. I hesitated. Everything in me said no. But then I looked at Leo's face. Hopeful. Excited in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. So I gave in. Okay, I said slowly. But don't be gone long. It's getting dark soon. They left at 6:15. I remember the time exactly because I checked my phone right after they walked out. I even watched them through the window. Leo skipped ahead. Olivia followed slowly, checking her makeup in the reflection of her phone screen. Back at the table, I tried to stay present. Brent was talking about school enrollment zones for Colin. Deirdre had moved on to scolding me for not buying Leo private math tutoring. She struggles, doesn't he? She asked. Have you thought about hiring someone to help him catch up? He doesn't need to catch up. He just learns differently. She waved her fork. Well, Colin's reading full chapter books now. Maybe Leo could benefit from. I said he's doing fine. I snapped. Silence fell. Brent coughed, took a sip of water. I rubbed my eyes. Sorry. Long day. I checked the time again. 6:40. Okay, maybe they were browsing. Maybe Olivia was letting Leo explore a bit. Still, I texted her. Me? Everything okay? No reply. 7:10. Me? Still at the store? Still nothing. Deirdre noticed me checking my phone and raised an eyebrow. They probably lost track of time. Don't be so anxious. But the knot in my stomach was getting tighter. Leo always responded. Always. Even if it was just a thumbs-up emoji. 7:30. The food had gone cold. Brent had moved on to football. Deirdre poured herself another glass of wine. By 8, I was no longer listening. I was just staring at the front door, willing it to open. But it didn't. No return. No calls. Just silence. And in that silence, a voice in my head whispered what I didn't want to believe. Something was very, very wrong. The door opened just after 8:30. Olivia stepped in, alone, coat draped over her arm like she'd just finished a yoga class. No rush in her steps, no panic in her face. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the tile. Where's Leo? She blinked at me like I'd asked what time it was. Oh, she said casually, he's still at the store. I forgot him. You what? She dropped her coat on a side chair. It was just a mix-up. He was looking at some art kits, and I got distracted. I figured you'd call me if you were worried. I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. You left my 6-year-old son alone at a store. For over 2 hours. Deirdre set down her wine glass and sighed loudly. Alan, don't make a scene. I turned to her. Don't make a scene? My kid has been missing for over 2 hours, and your daughter-in-law just walks in like it's no big deal. He's not missing, Olivia said, voice sharp now. He was being a little brat, honestly. Wouldn't stop talking. I needed a minute to clear my head. What? She rolled her eyes. God, you act like he's some delicate flower. Maybe if he learned how to shut up for once. I stepped forward, fists clenched at my sides. Where exactly did you leave him? She hesitated. The art aisle. At the front of the store? No, she said, tilting her head mockingly. Toward the back. By the hobby kits. I was already moving toward the door when Deirdre's voice followed me. Alan, don't overreact. He's probably made a friend by now. You know how chatty he is. I turned back. You knew? Deirdre stood slowly. Olivia texted me. Said she needed to step out. I assumed it was just for a minute. You assumed? You assumed it was okay to leave my son behind like some grocery cart. She crossed her arms. Don't talk to me like that. Maybe if you didn't coddle him so much, he wouldn't be so emotional. He needs to learn humility. Humility? I repeated. By being abandoned? Brent finally spoke, voice low. Alan, calm down. I looked at him. His face was pale, eyes flicking toward Olivia, then back to me. You knew too. He shook his head. No, but she mentioned earlier she was feeling overwhelmed. I didn't think. No, you didn't. My voice broke. None of you thought. You let this happen. All of you. Olivia folded her arms, leaning against the wall. Honestly, Alan, maybe this is a good thing. Leo thinks the world revolves around him. A little reality check never hurt anyone. I stared at her, heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. You did this on purpose. She didn't answer. Just smiled, cold and smug. Deirdre looked away. Brent dropped his eyes to the floor. That was all the confirmation I needed. I stormed out without another word. He's already in my hand. My mind was racing, but one thing cut through everything else like a blade. They hadn't just neglected Leo. They punished him. They punished a 6-year-old child for being joyful, expressive, different. And they did it in the name of teaching him a lesson. The only lesson here was mine. This family didn't just dislike my son. They resented him. I drove faster than I should have. Every stoplight felt like it was mocking me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel steady, and my mouth was dry. I kept picturing Leo scared, alone, wondering why nobody had come back for him, wondering if I had forgotten him too. When I pulled into the parking lot of the hobby store, the place was nearly empty. The front windows were dark except for a single aisle toward the back, still lit. I jumped out of the car and bolted for the doors. Inside, a young woman in a green apron looked up from behind the register. She recognized me immediately. "Are you Leo's dad?" I nodded, out of breath. "Where is he?" She motioned toward a corner of the store. "Back there with the manager. He's okay. Just shaken up." I followed her around the last aisle and found Leo sitting on a low stool, holding a crumpled tissue in one hand and a half-finished drawing in the other. His face was red, his eyes puffy. The moment he saw me, he dropped everything and ran. "Dad." I knelt down, catching him as he slammed into me. He wrapped his arms around my neck so tight it almost hurt. "I didn't care. I thought you forgot," he sobbed into my shirt. "She said she was just going to the car, and then she never came back. I waited and waited, and then the lady at the counter said I couldn't be here alone and It's okay," I whispered, holding the back of his head. "You're safe now. I'm here." The manager, a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and tired eyes, came over quietly. "He's been here for over 2 hours. We tried calling the number he gave us, but it went to voicemail. I called the police 20 minutes ago. I hope that's okay." "It's more than okay," I said. "Thank you for staying with him." She nodded. "I have grandkids. I couldn't imagine just leaving a child like that." 2 officers arrived not long after, a man and a woman. The female officer, Officer Garza, crouched beside Leo and offered him a sticker while the male officer, Officer Reynolds, pulled me aside. "We need a quick rundown of what happened, sir." I told them everything. Olivia's suggestion to take him out. The time they left. Her return without him. The casual attitude. The smirks. The implication that it had been some kind of punishment. Officer Reynolds took notes, frowning deeply. "You're saying this wasn't accidental?" "No. It was deliberate. She wanted to teach him a lesson." Her words. He looked over at Leo, then back at me. "That qualifies as felony child abandonment in this state. And if your story checks out, and I'm guessing it will, we'll be taking her into custody tonight." Officer Garza stood, smoothing Leo's hair. "We'll need to ask your son a few simple questions too. Just enough to confirm the sequence of events. But you'll stay with him the whole time." Leo sat on my lap while he answered. He told them what Olivia had said. How she promised a surprise. How she walked away saying she needed to grab something, and then just never came back. "She said not to tell anyone," Leo added, voice barely above a whisper. "Said Daddy would be mad if I made a big deal." Officer Garza gave him a soft smile and wrote that down. By the time we got back to Deirdre's house, 2 squad cars were already there. Olivia stood on the front lawn, arms crossed like she was being inconvenienced. Deirdre stood behind her, mouth tight, watching like a hawk. Brent hovered by the door, hands stuffed into his pockets. I parked across the street and told Leo to stay buckled in. "I'll be right back," I said. As I crossed the street, Officer Reynolds approached Olivia. "Olivia Kerrigan?" She turned, caught off guard. "Yes. You're being placed under arrest for felony child abandonment." "What?" She took a step back. "Wait, what are you talking about? That's absurd." "It was a misunderstanding." He pulled out handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." Deirdre rushed forward. "This is ridiculous." She just lost track of time. The boy was fine. Officer Garza joined them, standing between Deirdre and Olivia. "Ma'am, please step back. We have evidence, including statements, that indicate this was intentional." Olivia looked at me, eyes wide now, the first trace of panic breaking through. "Alan, come on. You're really doing this? Over a little tantrum?" "A tantrum," I repeated. "You left my son alone in a store like he was garbage. And then you laughed about it." She tried to twist free. "This is insane." But the officers moved quickly. Olivia was cuffed and placed in the back of a squad car. Deirdre turned on me next. "You're blowing this way out of proportion, Alan. She's family." She didn't mean it. I stepped closer. Don't you dare try to minimize what she did. You knew. You let it happen. And if I hadn't gone after him, who knows how long he would have been sitting there, wondering why no one loved him enough to come back." Her face twisted, but she said nothing. Officer Reynolds approached me again. "We'll be filing an incident report. If you want to pursue additional charges or civil action, we can walk you through that process." I nodded. "I want to do everything." As they drove Olivia away, I looked back at the house where my son had been made to feel like less than. And I made a promise, right there, in the dark, under that flickering porch light. They weren't going to break him. Not while I was still standing. The police report was just the beginning. 2 days after Olivia's arrest, I got a call from Detective Lena Harrow. Calm voice, clipped tone, the kind that told you she wasn't wasting anyone's time. She introduced herself, then got straight to it. "We're opening a formal investigation into the incident involving your son, Leo," she said. There are signs this wasn't spontaneous. I'd like to ask you a few more questions and possibly look at any messages or communications you've received from the parties involved. I didn't even hesitate. Tell me where and when. She met me at my place that afternoon. Leo was at school, which was probably for the best. I pulled up the text history on my phone and showed her everything. Olivia's fake niceness from dinner, the way Deirdre suddenly encouraged the outing, the silence that followed. Detective Harrow took it all in without flinching. When I told her I had a hunch that this had been building for a while, she gave a slow nod. That's what we're starting to suspect too, she said. 3 days later, she called me again. We found something, she said. Turns out Olivia wasn't as careful as she thought. When they checked her phone, legally, through a search warrant tied to the child abandonment charge, they uncovered a cache of messages between her and Deirdre. Text after text, spread over months, all about Leo. One read, "He acts like the center of attention even when he's not invited to be. It's exhausting." Another, "Deirdre, maybe Alan will stop spoiling him if he learns the world doesn't revolve around him. Let him feel a little rejection." But the worst one? "Olivia, I have a plan. He needs to learn what it feels like to be ignored. Let's just say, we'll go out for a treat, and he'll be left to figure it out. Maybe that'll teach the brat some humility." When Detective Harrow read that one aloud to me, I felt like the air left my lungs. They hadn't just mistreated Leo. They plotted to humiliate him. A 6-year-old. Deliberately. Calculated. I filed a civil complaint that same week. Emotional harm, endangerment, psychological trauma. My lawyer said the premeditated nature of the texts made the case rock solid. We were suing both Olivia and Deirdre. Not for the money, I didn't give a damn about that, but for justice. And the evidence kept stacking. Brent, finally cracking under pressure, admitted Olivia had been complaining about Leo for months. How she said he was loud, needy, too much. At first, he thought it was just venting. But the week before the dinner, she told him, "I'm going to do something that'll fix the way Alan treats that kid. It's time someone put them in their place." He hadn't asked what she meant. He just looked the other way. I didn't know whether to be more furious at Olivia for doing it, or Brent for letting it happen. But then came the school report, the final nail. Leo's counselor, Miss Trina Holcomb, submitted documentation noting changes in his behavior over the last few months. She'd seen him withdraw during class activities, drawing less, asking if it was okay to raise his hand, telling her, maybe I shouldn't talk too much or people will get annoyed. She'd made a note to follow up. She never knew what was happening outside of school, but now it all made sense. Detective Harrow included the school documentation in her report. The civil case moved faster than expected. Olivia's lawyer tried to negotiate, but we weren't having it. Not after what she did. Not after what they all allowed. In court, the texts were presented as premeditated emotional abuse. In the gallery, Deirdre sat stone-faced, refusing to look at me. Olivia looked like she was about to cry, but it was the kind of tears people cry when they're sorry they got caught, not sorry for the harm they caused. The judge didn't mince words. "You deliberately endanger the emotional and physical well-being of a minor," he said. "This isn't misjudgment. This is cruelty disguised as parenting." Leo wasn't there for that hearing. I didn't want him anywhere near a courtroom. But when I got home, he was sitting at the kitchen table, drawing another dragon. "Can I give this one to Ms. Holcomb?" he asked. She said I'm really brave. I nodded and sat beside him. She's right. And this time, when he smiled, it reached all the way to his eyes. The night after the hearing, I sat up thinking about Colin. I couldn't shake the image of Leo sitting alone in that store, scared, confused, thinking he'd done something wrong, and wondering if Colin had ever felt that way too. Olivia didn't just turn cold toward my kid out of nowhere. That kind of cruelty doesn't stay confined. And Brent, he looked guilty for weeks but hadn't said a damn thing until the police were involved. The next morning, I called family services. It felt strange, reporting something like this about my own family, but I knew I'd never forgive myself if I stayed silent. I told them everything, the abandonment, the texts, the court case, the patterns. "Colin lives with her," I said. "If she was willing to leave my son in a store to prove a point, what's happening behind closed doors with her own kid?" They took it seriously. Within 48 hours, a caseworker named Joanna Marsh knocked on Olivia and Brent's door for an unannounced visit. Brent called me that night. His voice was low, shaky. She told them it was all exaggerated. Said I was just bitter about the divorce. "Divorce?" I asked. "She filed," he said, "right after the arrest. Claims I wasn't supportive enough. Said I turned on her. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to." Then he added, "Colin told them something." "What?" He said, sometimes when he cried, she'd leave him in the garage. Said she'd only come back if he promised to be good. My stomach dropped. Brent went quiet, then said, "He told the caseworker she once said, 'If you keep acting like this, I'll forget you on purpose.'" It hit me like a punch to the chest. She didn't just use that tactic on Leo. She'd been using it on her own son. By the end of the week, Olivia's supervised visitation was suspended pending further review. Colin stayed with Brent full-time. Family Services arranged for a psychologist to evaluate him, a kind woman named Dr. Kinley who'd worked with trauma-exposed children before. Colin didn't cry when they took him from Olivia's care. He didn't fight it or scream. Brent told me he just sat on the edge of the couch, clutching a stuffed lion, and said, "Is it okay if I don't have to go back there?" That broke me. Brent started coming around more. At first, it was just quick calls, asking about lawyers, counselors, what to expect. Then longer ones. Late nights when the guilt finally cracked through his denial. He admitted he'd ignored the signs. Said Olivia always told him he was too soft on Colin, and he believed her. She always said kids needed tough love, he told me once. I thought I was being strong by staying quiet. I didn't let him off the hook. Not fully. But I also knew he was trying now. And Colin needed that. Family Services charged Olivia with additional counts: psychological endangerment, reckless emotional abuse of a minor. They officially opened a separate case for Colin, which folded into the growing mountain of legal issues against her. Deirdre tried to fight it. Claimed it was all overreach, said the state was meddling in things they didn't understand. But when they showed her the interview transcript, when she read Colin's words, even she went silent. The illusion of Olivia as the perfect mother was shattered. And for the first time, Colin wasn't just the golden child. He was a boy who'd been quietly surviving in a home that demanded silence over truth. That week, Brent brought Colin over for dinner at our place. Leo greeted him at the door like they were best friends who hadn't seen each other in years. Within 10 minutes, they were building Lego castles in the living room and making up stories about knights and dragons. At one point, Colin looked up and said, "Uncle Alan, can I show you my drawing?" I knelt beside him. Of course. He held up a picture, just some stick figures, a house, and two boys playing with a ball. But in the corner, he'd drawn a small heart with the word "safe" written inside it. My throat tightened. "You're always safe here," I said. And I meant every word. Once the charges against Olivia became public, her employer, a local pediatric clinic she'd worked at for nearly a decade, released a statement within 24 hours. They said they were deeply disturbed by the allegations and had launched an internal review. By the next day, she was fired. Not suspended or placed on leave. Fired. Turns out, parents weren't too keen on leaving their children in the care of someone charged with abandoning and psychologically harming a 6-year-old. It made the local news. The segment was short, buried under fluff about a street fair, but it was enough. They showed her mugshot. They mentioned Leo by age only. They quoted the judge's statement about intentional, sustained cruelty masked as discipline. Olivia tried to spin it online. Posted a long, rambling note on her Facebook account with a carefully filtered photo of her and Colin from last Christmas. Every parent gets overwhelmed. Every parent makes mistakes. I was trying to teach a child some boundaries, not abuse anyone. This witch hunt is out of control. She tagged it #JusticeForMoms and claimed the entire thing was a smear campaign orchestrated by a vindictive ex-brother-in-law and spineless husband. It went viral, but not the way she hoped. The comments were brutal. "You left a child in a store to teach him a lesson? You belong nowhere near kids. This isn't a mistake. This is premeditated abuse. You're a pediatric nurse? God help us." Within 48 hours, someone dug up screenshots of her old group chats, the same ones Detective Harrow had used as evidence in our civil case. They were filled with cruel jokes about Leo, subtle threats about Colin, and bragging about how, finally, someone will humble that little attention seeker. People shared those screenshots like wildfire. She deleted the post. Then she deleted her account. But it was too late. Her name was tied to child endangerment now. And worse, to a pattern of it. Deirdre tried to stay quiet through most of it, but when reporters learned she was listed on a local children's advocacy board, that ended too. Emails flooded in demanding her removal. By the end of the week, she was asked to resign in the interest of preserving public trust. She didn't fight it. Maybe because she knew she'd never escape that line from the police report. Text exchanges suggest direct knowledge and tacit encouragement of the planned abandonment. Brent, to his credit, cooperated through all of it. Signed whatever was needed. Made a public apology, not for Olivia, but to Leo. He stood on our porch one night, looked my son in the eye, and said, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'll never let anything like that happen again." Leo just nodded. "Okay," he said, then went back to building a rocket ship out of cereal boxes. The civil case was closed within the month. We won. Every count. The judge awarded full damages, enough to cover Leo's therapy, future schooling, and then some. When the clerk read the total aloud, Olivia didn't flinch. Just stared blankly, like she was already somewhere else. Like she knew this was only the beginning. Her bail was revoked shortly after, deemed a flight risk after the press attention and online backlash. She was taken back into custody, pending final sentencing. Her custody rights were stripped indefinitely. She'd get supervised visitation only if deemed psychologically sound, something no professional was in a rush to confirm. As we walked out of the courthouse that day, Leo reached up and took my hand. "Do we have to see her again?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, buddy, we don't." He smiled, small but real, then said, "Good." That night, we framed the dragon drawing he'd made before all of this started. The one Olivia never even looked at. It hangs in the hallway now, right above his backpack hook. It's the first thing he sees when he walks in the door, and the last thing before bed. A reminder that he matters, that he was never the problem, and that truth, finally, had won. Once the charges against Olivia became public, her employer, a local pediatric clinic she'd worked at for nearly a decade, released a statement within 24 hours. They said they were deeply disturbed by the allegations and had launched an internal review. By the next day, she was fired. Not suspended or placed on leave. Fired. Turns out, parents weren't too keen on leaving their children in the care of someone charged with abandoning and psychologically harming a 6-year-old. It made the local news. The segment was short, buried under fluff about a street fair, but it was enough. They showed her mugshot. They mentioned Leo by age only. They quoted the judge's statement about intentional, sustained cruelty masked as discipline. Olivia tried to spin it online. Posted a long, rambling note on her Facebook account with a carefully filtered photo of her and Colin from last Christmas. Every parent gets overwhelmed. Every parent makes mistakes. I was trying to teach a child some boundaries, not abuse anyone. This witch hunt is out of control. She tagged it #JusticeForMoms and claimed the entire thing was a smear campaign orchestrated by a vindictive ex-brother-in-law and spineless husband. It went viral, but not the way she hoped. The comments were brutal. "You left a child in a store to teach him a lesson? You belong nowhere near kids. This isn't a mistake. This is premeditated abuse. You're a pediatric nurse? God help us." Within 48 hours, someone dug up screenshots of her old group chats, the same ones Detective Harrow had used as evidence in our civil case. They were filled with cruel jokes about Leo, subtle threats about Colin, and bragging about how, finally, someone will humble that little attention seeker. People shared those screenshots like wildfire. She deleted the post. Then she deleted her account. But it was too late. Her name was tied to child endangerment now. And worse, to a pattern of it. Deirdre tried to stay quiet through most of it, but when reporters learned she was listed on a local children's advocacy board, that ended too. Emails flooded in demanding her removal. By the end of the week, she was asked to resign in the interest of preserving public trust. She didn't fight it. Maybe because she knew she'd never escape that line from the police report. Text exchanges suggest direct knowledge and tacit encouragement of the planned abandonment. Brent, to his credit, cooperated through all of it. Signed whatever was needed. Made a public apology, not for Olivia, but to Leo. He stood on our porch one night, looked my son in the eye, and said, "I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'll never let anything like that happen again." Leo just nodded. "Okay," he said, then went back to building a rocket ship out of cereal boxes. The civil case was closed within the month. We won. Every count. The judge awarded full damages, enough to cover Leo's therapy, future schooling, and then some. When the clerk read the total aloud, Olivia didn't flinch. Just stared blankly, like she was already somewhere else. Like she knew this was only the beginning. Her bail was revoked shortly after, deemed a flight risk after the press attention and online backlash. She was taken back into custody, pending final sentencing. Her custody rights were stripped indefinitely. She'd get supervised visitation only if deemed psychologically sound, something no professional was in a rush to confirm. As we walked out of the courthouse that day, Leo reached up and took my hand. "Do we have to see her again?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, buddy. We don't." He smiled small, but real, then said, "Good." That night, we framed the dragon drawing he'd made before all of this started. The one Olivia never even looked at. It hangs in the hallway now, right above his backpack hook. It's the first thing he sees when he walks in the door. And the last thing before bed. A reminder that he matters. That he was never the problem. And that truth, finally, had won. After everything, I wasn't sure how Leo would bounce back. You don't just get abandoned by someone you trusted and walk away unchanged, not at 6 years old. But kids are weirdly resilient, sometimes more than adults deserve. Still, I knew I couldn't do this alone. We started therapy the week after the court decision. Dr. Neha Rao came highly recommended, soft voice, gentle eyes, and the kind of patience you don't fake. She didn't ask Leo to spill his guts. She let him talk through action figures and drawing pads. Week by week, his pictures got brighter. The dragon stopped crying. The heroes stopped standing alone. I sat in a few sessions too. At first just to translate when he froze, then because Dr. Rao gently suggested I needed a space, too. She wasn't wrong. Meanwhile, I started building a different kind of support system. Not family. Something better. Real people who'd shown up when it counted. Like Ms. Holcomb, Leo's school counselor. She emailed me once a week just to check in, even after she technically didn't have to. She said Leo had started raising his hand more, started humming again while he colored. He smiles now, she wrote once. The kind that starts in his chest. Or Angie, the art store clerk who stayed with Leo that awful night. She dropped by on Saturdays sometimes, bringing him new sketchbooks. Just returns, she always said with a wink, as if she hadn't paid for them herself. And Brent. He wasn't just apologizing anymore. He was showing up. He signed Colin up for the same art club Leo was in. They started walking into school together, backpacks bouncing. Brent offered to drive when I had late shifts. We weren't close, not yet, but we were trying. There was no manual for how to be a brother again after everything. But he was present. And after so many years of being invisible in my own family, that counted for a lot. One Saturday morning, Colin and Leo sat on the floor of our living room, piecing together a huge puzzle, one of those galaxy ones that takes forever. Leo looked up and asked, "Dad, do you think we were supposed to go through all that stuff?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Like, maybe it had to happen, so Colin could live here too sometimes. And so we could all be better." I knelt beside him. "I don't know if it had to happen, but I'm glad we're here now." He nodded, then pointed to a missing puzzle piece. "Can you help me find Saturn?" "I think Colin lost it." From across the room, Colin shouted. "I did not. It was the dog." We didn't even have a dog. That night, Leo worked on a school essay. He wouldn't let me read it at first, said it was a surprise. But when he turned it in, his teacher sent me a copy. My dad is my hero. He always comes to get me, even when I don't know I'm lost. I read it 3 times. Framed that one, too. It's next to the dragon now. Different style. Same story. He's safe. We both are. Olivia was sentenced in early spring. For years. No parole for the first 18 months. The judge didn't hold back, said the crime wasn't just about negligence, but about a calculated attack on a child's sense of worth. Deirdre didn't get prison time, but the civil court hit her hard. Between legal fees and the damages, her savings drained fast. She sold her house 2 months later. I heard she moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. I never reached out. Didn't see the point. We moved that summer. Not far, just a quieter town an hour away with a better elementary school and parks that didn't feel like memory mines. Leo didn't say much about the move. He just packed up his things, carefully folding his drawings, making sure the dragon and the essay came with us. "I want to put them up in the new house," he said. "Like anchors." That's what he called them now. Anchors. Brent and Colin stayed behind, but we stayed in touch. They visited every other weekend, and on holidays. Colin even asked if he could sleep over for his birthday, which felt like a small miracle. The boys still bickered like brothers, but there was a softness between them now. An understanding. One evening, I got asked to speak at a parenting seminar at Leo's new school. Someone had heard about our story, I wasn't sure who, and thought I could talk about resilience or something like that. I didn't want to at first. But Leo said, "You always say people should trust their gut. Maybe someone needs to hear it." So I stood in a library with 2 bright lights and mismatched chairs and talked about instincts. About how sometimes the quiet voice in your head saying this doesn't feel right is the one you have to scream through a wall of smiling faces to be heard. How even family can be wrong. How protecting your child might mean walking away from everything you were raised to believe about loyalty. I ended with this. If you have to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your kid, choose your kid. Every time. There was silence for a second. Then someone clapped. Then more. I didn't need the applause. But I felt it anyway, that strange ache of finally being seen. Father's Day came around a couple weeks later. Leo woke me up with burnt toast and orange juice with way too much pulp. "Close your eyes," he said. When I opened them, he was holding a new card. Hand-painted, just like the old one. This time, it was a giant tree with 2 stick figures sitting under it, one big, one small. On the inside, it read, "You didn't just rescue me. You stayed. That's what makes you my hero." I framed it that night. Hung it next to the dragon. Next to the essay. Anchors. Proof that we made it out. And that we were never going back.